Welcome, Business Freedom Podcast listeners. I am super psyched to have our guest on today. He comes from outside the real estate industry, which I think is going to make this an exciting call. As you know, this is Lars Hedenborg, the founder of Real Estate B School and co-founder of High Performance Real Estate Advisors in Charlotte, North Carolina. Tom, before I let you get into how you got here, are you prepared to share the good, the bad, the ugly about your business growth journey?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so let's get into it. So I'll give like my 30-second overview. The reason I'm super excited, I've known Tom for probably, I feel like 8 years maybe.
Yeah, pretty close.
Yeah, so about 8 years. And he's had a similar journey in terms of doing something a little different in his industry, which is the mortgage industry. And it sort of parallels what I've been able to do in the real estate industry. And we kind of, I think you're a few years ahead of me in terms of what you did. And then also, I've just gotten to know Tom personally, and we're in a men's group together. So he's an awesome man of God and a great husband and father. And he's a few years ahead of me in my journey. So he sort of brings words of wisdom to many areas of my life. So Tom, give us like a few-minute overview of a little bit about yourself personally, and then a little bit about your growth journey in the mortgage industry.
Yeah. So Lars, thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to be here. There's so many parallels between, mortgage and real estate. And that's what, every time you and I get together and start talking, it's always just a great learning opportunity for me. So I appreciate that. So, my background, go back real far, is I'm the grandson and son of real estate agents. So my grandfather started a real estate company in 1928. And one of my uncles, who is in his mid 80s now, still runs that real estate company up in Massachusetts. And my dad sold real estate for about 15 years. And when interest rates got up to 18% around 1980, he got out of the industry, which is kind of interesting. And my background, real quick, went to school for engineering. Did that for about 6 months, hated it, so ran away from home and joined the Air Force. And I had the opportunity. I actually got to fly F-16s for 10 years in the Air Force, and then became an airline pilot, which hated that job. It was the only job I've ever hated. I just said engineering as well. So maybe disliked engineering, hated being an airline pilot. So 9/11 happened and gave me the opportunity to reinvent myself. So I actually got laid off in the events after 9/11. And that gave me a chance to sort of rediscover myself. And so 2002, got licensed as a loan officer. I looked at a whole bunch of different opportunities, real estate being one of them, and realized with my interest in finance and my family history in real estate that mortgages are probably the right place to land for me. And since that point, I started out as a loan officer. I was a VP of sales for a company, left there, started my own broker shop in the summer of 2007, which was when the mortgage industry meltdown started. And then summer of 2008, so a year later, I joined a national firm as a producing branch manager, and then have been with Fairway for 10 years now, and have grown our team from just some numbers there. The first year in 2008 at Fairway, had 3 people on a team. We did 28 million in loan volume, and last year, today we've got about 70 people on the team in a bunch of locations in and around the Charlotte area, North and South Carolina, and we'll do about 400 million in loan volume this year.
Yeah, that's awesome. And in relative to your company, are you top of the company? Where are you in the company?
Top 10. So yeah, so we were number one branch a while back, and there's a lot of growth. But one of the things that's interesting is you count branches by in the mortgage side by loans you close, or units, or loan volume that you lend out. And some of my friends up in the Northeast or on the West Coast have really nice loan amounts, and then some really great guys in the Midwestern part of the U.S. just do a ton of loans and help a ton of people. So yeah. So top 10.
And you're high, we talk about agent productivity on real estate teams. Would you say average to the industry, are your loan officers higher, more productive than average loan officers? Where are you on that scale?
Yeah. So that's actually one of the things I'm proudest of. So national average for years, really since 2003, has been a loan officer around the country that's not working in a call center or working in a bank environment. So, the loan officers out there working with real estate agents, building relationships and serving mutual clients. National average is about 3 loans a month. And this year, not as much, but in years past, we've averaged 8 loans a month in our branch. And that's been kind of my promise to people is, hey, join my team, use our systems and our processes and our technology. And, within 12 to 18 months, you're going to double your production. And that's really what we've focused on that. And we see that happen in our branch.
Yeah. And then, so for the listeners, I want, this story is going to be one of a guy that came into an industry, kind of didn't know what he was doing, just like we all do, figured that he could have more of an impact, empowering others, on his team and building this massive team. So 3 people that did 28 million to go to 70 people doing 400 million. And there's going to be a lot of management lessons and failures here. There's going to be a lot of leadership lessons and failures, making that switch from production mindset, a loan officer, same production mindset, like where's the next loan coming from, versus finding people, making mistakes on hiring people, having wins on hiring people. So that's what this story is going to be about. Because I don't want you scratching your head, thinking that what can I learn from a mortgage guy? Building a business is building a business. And I don't care if you took away mortgages or real estate for Tom and I and gave us another industry, we would, with our skill sets and our failures, we would learn how to fail fast in anything because we have that sort of skill set of building a business. So, Tom, before we get into kind of the nitty gritty of building a business, let's kind of get the motivational ball rolling a little bit. Is there any kind of success quote or, words of wisdom that you sort of clung on to, early when the years were, it sucked back in 08, 09, and 2010? What kind of kept you going from like maybe a success quote or something? Yeah.
So first one I think is probably Henry Ford, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. But I think what really, that one I think of all the time, and it's just your belief state to start out. But for me, it really comes down to, in the Bible is a parable of talents. And 2,000 years ago, a talent was a unit of money. And it's kind of funny that it translates into today's English as a talent, right? And some people are given 1 talent, some are given 2, and some are given 5. And to me, the way I apply that is it's gratitude. If God gives me the ability to do something, and I take that ability, I hide it under the ground like the guy with 1 talent did, I'm not really saying thank you to God. I'm saying the exact opposite. If he gives me 2 talents and I double and turn them into 4, say, hey, look what you gave me and look what I did with it. That's where God says, well done, good and faithful servant. And so really my success quote is always that, I don't want to say I got 5 talents, but I think I got 2. And I want to show my gratitude. But if I have the ability to grow or to expand or to help somebody do better in life, then that's my way of showing gratitude to my creator.
Yeah, that's awesome. Let's go back to, and I don't know how we can sort of break up your growth journey, but I know for a real estate agent, you first get into it, like you don't know what you're doing. You're trying to find out, like, give me some loans so I can make some money. Like that's the first growth stage. And then it's, some of this stuff I need leverage, I've got too much business maybe to handle my own. Maybe that's the next phase of growth. And then there's kind of like an exiting production phase. But let's go to that first phase. So take us back to 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
What was it like? What was your daily schedule like? Speak a little bit in general so we can take away the lessons of, how did you sort of put together enough business to kind of get something going? Kind of describe that first phase and then the lessons that you learned from it.
Yeah. So really take it back a little bit further, even 2003, 2004. And, so I got my license. I had a company that was, let me do loans with them as a loan officer. No training whatsoever. No culture. It was just like, yeah, if you got a laptop and a license, you can come work for me and do loans, And so I was still flying in the Air Force Reserves at the time, and I was walking out to the jet one day with one of my other instructors. I was an instructor pilot, and the guy says, "Hey, Tousignant, I heard you got in the mortgage industry." And I'm like, "Yeah, I just started." He's like, "Well, I think I need to refinance." And I was like, well, let's talk after we fly. So we flew the mission, we came back, debriefed, and then tell me about the refi. I punched out my calculator. I'm like, I can save you $180 a month and pay all your closing costs. He's like, right on, let's do it. So kind of a long story, but 2 months into the business, I closed 17 loans in my second month. And the lesson was that 4 months later, October, I had a closing on a Friday, and I was camping with my family that weekend. I remember laying in a tent that night, listening to the Red Sox play the Yankees on the radio. So go Red Sox! I had a good game last night, so we're tied up with Houston right now. But I know by the time this thing gets out there, this could be over. But hopefully the Red Sox go to the World Series this year. But the rates had gone up 0.5 point, and I'm laying in bed going, I had my last closing. I'm completely out of business. I had nothing in my pipeline. And I share that story because it still impacts me, because the lesson was I had done nothing but VA refis for my military buddies. And so my first 6 months of the business, I was like a, flash in the pan. Just, it was incredible, but that's because the market gave me an opportunity. And so I realized at that point, like, man, don't ever be an expert in one thing in terms of your lead sources. Because you don't know what's going to change. And the same thing, the corollary in the real estate market is if you're only the condo specialist, or you're only the first-time home buyer specialist, or only the jumbo property lakefront guy, you can find yourself in trouble. So you've got to be a credible expert in a bunch of different areas. So that led me to really spreading out to, working with real estate agents for referrals. I did a lot of work with financial advisors and really getting into mortgage planning and helping people say, hey, how can we manage this big beast called a 30-year fixed mortgage? And how can we manage our home equity in such a way that it helps us reach our long and short-term financial goals? So make sure the payments are right, and the equity is right, and the asset allocation and stuff. So a lot of time working with financial advisors, real estate agents, and then taking really good care of my clients so that when they needed a new mortgage, i.e. a refi, they would think of me as well. So really diversifying into different ways to get business. So regardless of what the economy's doing, or the interest rates are doing, or home prices are doing, I could still find some business for myself. So that was really me, my personal production. And really up through kind of 2009 was sort of that, making sure I had different ways of getting leads and different types of people to be talking to based on what the economy was allowing to happen there.
Yeah. And in real estate, there's a lot of agents where the market is not going to be so kind as it shifts here, and they're kind of getting business from friends and family, and there is no systematic lead generation. We talk about at least having, a database, yard signs, and a couple lead sources, so 4, just like a chair is most stable if it has 4 legs, so same exact philosophy. So 2009. So what happens in 2009? Is that when you decide to get a little bit of leverage and go toward building a team?
Yeah. So I started out, my leverage really started with technology. And that was, one of the things I learned from aviation is you got to learn from your mistakes. So we make mistakes every single day. And a lot of people get scared about making mistakes. They hide from them. They don't want anybody to find out. They get embarrassed, let ego in the way or something like that. Well, in the Air Force, mistakes are brutally reviewed and looked at. So we videotaped everything. We talked about the plan. We executed the plan. And we came back in our debriefs. We might fly a 45-minute flight and debrief it for 6 hours. And there was always a learning environment going on. And so you never hid from your mistakes. You dove into it, go, why'd this happen? What was the system breakdown that allowed this to happen? What are we going to do next time to make sure it never happens again? And it didn't matter if you were a general or a colonel or a captain or lieutenant. If you made a mistake, it was being called out and it was going to be reviewed, and rank had nothing to do with it. And so that was my biggest leverage early on in 2009, probably, was modest technology, but nothing compared to what we have today. But do things, only do what I had to do and do it one time. And so that was my personal production. That was my best year. I closed 154 units that year. I didn't have an assistant, dedicated staff, a team, or anything like that. It was just grinding it out. But I also, beginning of the year, had determined I was going to take a 3-day weekend every month, and I was going to take my first ever 2-week vacation that summer, which I did all that. So I had my biggest ever year, income wise and production wise, but also kept true to my balance by, learning from mistakes and being brutally honest with myself, saying, how do I do it better and faster next time? And really set me out on a technology path to do things faster.
So let's talk about that. So 85% of real estate agents don't have an assistant. So most don't understand, or maybe they feel like they're not at a point where they could afford an assistant, which is sort of a crazy thought because they're doing all the $15 hour work themselves. But Um, take us to that. I think there's a lesson there where you can still be a top producer
Mm-hmm.
in a field and have standards around your time.
Mm-hmm.
So talk about that. Was that just a decision? Was that expectations up front with clients that, hey, listen, if the banks are closed, I'm closed. Like what was it that allowed you to take time away and disconnect and be with your family?
Yeah, part of it was just a decision up front. It was the willingness to say no to things. It was funny. I that year I took one call on a Saturday night from an agent about pre-qualifying somebody, and it was the only time all year, literally on a Saturday night at 6:30, I take a call. Hey, can you call this guy and pre-qualify him? So I call and talk to him, and they were, if you remember back then, if you were in the business back then, it was, jumbo loan rates were like at 9%, and the 30-year fixed conforming loan rates were like at 6. And so he wanted a jumbo loan rate at 5.5%. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't exist, dude. Sorry, I can't. It's no pre-qual. It's just I can't help you. And the funny thing was, I ended up getting involved in a lawsuit later on between the buyer and the seller and the agents. I'm like, don't take calls on Saturday nights, right? Like I ended up getting sucked into a lawsuit and have to, testify and all this stuff because of that. So, but it's interesting. I think the thing with assistants, because a lot of loan officers want to build teams and have assistants as well. And the thing is make sure you're not hiring an assistant to cover up for your inefficiencies. And that's where you got to get brutally honest on what are the minimum things I have to do that are non-negotiable, that have to get done so that I can present the service levels that I need to present to be referable and to be professional and to get the job done on time. We're always closing on time and the information's out early and everybody's communicating well. And once I figured that out, don't hire an assistant to allow me to be inefficient, and that's where I see a lot of people say, well, I'm going to bring bodies in first and I'll hire a bunch of people and increase my expenses, but we're still doing a bunch of stuff that maybe we don't need to do, or we're not focused on the real critical things first. So for me, it was more systems first and then people into the system.
Yeah, that's really, and I think back on my journey, it's like in real estate, it's that 45 to 50 deal mark where you really need to start thinking about an assistant that can take you to the next level. That could take you to 100 units.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was always kind of, I needed to do the thing at a real high level efficiently and documented before I earned the right to hand it off to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's a marketing system or working with buyers or working with sellers or contract to close process, whatever it was, I need to at least build a system first. So it's kind of, you're basically saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So take us to, 2009 was a big personal production year. When did you start building a team? What was the catalyst to building a team?
Yeah. So like I said, I did, I was top 5 personal producer in our company in 2009 and was real busy. 2010, I cut back a little bit on my production. I had people say, hey, I want to join your group as producers, loan officers. So 2010 was sort of a mix of, hey, I'm leading loan officers that are getting loans done and I'm doing my own production. And there's a conflict there. If I got somebody on the phone that's, buying an $800,000 house or a $400,000 house and wants to work with me, and I got a loan officer with another dumb question, right? Who's going to take priority? It's certainly going to be my production. So there's always a conflict there for a producing manager in the mortgage field. And so I spent most of 2010 just really looking at things. And then 2011, I decided, all right, I'm going to get out of personal production. And if I can take what I did, those 150 loans, that system I used to do that and have a good life balance and good earnings and be efficient and, really take great care of my people, what if I could build a system I could plug other people into? And my belief was I could build a system, plug other people into, their production would grow. And if I bring somebody from company X and they join me and their volume doubles and their income doubles as a result, they're going to stay with me. And that was really kind of my theory in 2011. And that's really what we're seeing bear out today. That was my initial game plan.
Yeah. So let's dig into that. I'm not sure how quite yet. So maybe we'll just kind of back and forth here. I think I was involved in a call earlier this morning with a guy that is just in this transition. So his team will do 1.5 million GCI. He'll do 900,000 of it. Mm-hmm. And he's sort of like afraid to kind of let go. And I said, well, I'm going to get you and I are going to get on a call. We're going to make a commitment around a date that you are going to let go. He's got like young kids at home and a wife that's not, he'll do 90 units this year or something, something crazy. And so how did that look for you? Because at that time, I can't do the math that quick, but you have 4 kids, 2 boys. Yeah. So what ages, how did it look like? Just tell us how it looked with Kathy, with the kids. Was it a time thing? Was it you just saw opportunity with your team? What was it? Let's break it down.
Yeah. So no, you mentioned I got 3 kids in college right now, and my oldest girl is already out of school and living in Salt Lake City now, so out of town. And it was so, my kids are 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 when I'm working, starting my business and working like crazy. And I've shared with you, share with other people, man, that time goes really fast, And there was I don't regret the work I did to build what I did, but man, it gets quiet really quick when the kids leave the house, and you have you're given a limited window of opportunity to influence these amazing human beings' lives as they're growing and to build a relationship with them and go from, your parent is kind of, you're assigned your parents, but you choose your mentors and your friends. And so when they hit 18, 19, 20 and they're starting to grow up, are they turning back and saying, yeah, Dad, I want you to be a mentor to me. I'm still going to listen to you. I don't have to anymore, but I want to. And I still want to be your friend. When good things happen, I'm going to call you first. And those are things you need to be thinking about when you're 8, 9, 10 years old. And, if you say, hey, what are your regrets? That would be, I could have been had more foresight on that. So it's good now, but obviously it could have been better. So, yeah.
And then making, so you're a top producer at making probably pretty good money. Mm-hmm. And you had that sort of year that probably didn't feel so good, 2010, where you probably weren't a great manager and leader because you still had your foot in production. In 2011, what did it take mentally to make the shift from production to business ownership or team leadership?
Yeah, so you and I both know, Dan Sullivan, strategic coach, and his, core concept there, unique ability. What's the 1 or 2 things you can do in the world uniquely? And that's where I spent a lot of time going, man, I could build systems so people could plug in and do loans, or I could do loans myself. And I was a pretty good loan officer. Obviously, I put up some pretty good numbers. I'm willing to work hard. I know my stuff, but I really think my ability to build systems that people could plug into and be successful with was a greater strength of mine. And then and that's where I really found my passion. That's what I love doing is creating that system that people could plug into, and then helping people see that and see their production go up. So really, unique ability was a big part of it. And then the other thing was just diversifying myself. Again, started out just doing VA refis, not very diversified, and then expanded to where I was doing loans personally. But what happens if I need to take some time off to be with my family, or I want to take some time off or something like that? So if I'm the only producer out there, there's not that much diversification. And as I started needing support staff, some processors and closers and admin people, I needed to diversify the income stream so I can make my payroll, pay my rents and things like that as well. So not just personal income, but when you start taking on responsibilities for other people's income, that diversification to me was sort of the catalyst that said, hey, let's go this direction. And, basically put myself in a position where I couldn't, failure wasn't an option. It was Magellan or whoever said, burn the boats. I did the same thing when I started in the mortgage industry. My wife was home with 4 kids, and I had to make a living. We had 100 kids to feed, and same thing. 2010 and 11, getting out of production, I had payroll now. Besides my family, I also had payroll to make, and I had rent obligations and things like that. So not succeeding was not an option. We had to.
Yeah. Let's I think one thing that, and really in any industry or, business owners, a lot of times we don't come together and, talk about our failures. And I think there's so much to learn about building a business from failure. When you look back, maybe not regrets, but things, the failures, those moments where it just didn't feel good. Maybe you couldn't make payroll. Maybe you just didn't want to just not go home and not go back to the office and like just drive into the mountains or something. What's a moment where you could think of where it just was tough, and how'd you get through it? What lessons did you learn?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, the first year I got out of production, and I just relied on other people to bring loans in. Yeah, that was over a 50% pay cut, and so that was a big deal. Like, man, did I make this decision too quickly or too rashly? And the good news is, a year later, I was able to grow the business, and we brought our income back to where it was before. So that was a big lesson. But I think the biggest thing was that as I look at it, got an amazing team of people now, but I've also got this list that I'm embarrassed of the number of people that worked for me that don't work for me anymore. And the biggest thing for why don't you work with me anymore is values and culture mismatches, which you can absolutely discover that during an interview process. And there's times you overlook it. You get a loan officer comes in and says, wow, look at all the volume that person's doing. If they brought that much business to me, look what it would do to our bottom line. And your insides are saying, no, don't do it, because this person doesn't like you. They don't. And when I say don't like you, not because I'm bald or whatever, it's they don't like my values. They don't like the things that are important to me. And that's the biggest thing. As I look at that list, is like I go down and I go, man, these people did not care in my vision, my mission, my values, and I knew it early on. And so that's still a consistent learning point for us. Unfortunately, is still trying to go. Just have the courage to say no when you look at the financial aspect looks good, but the values don't match.
Yeah.
And that's the number one reason why I have that list of people and that's a lesson. I'd love to say I'm learning that one faster, but I'm struggling with.
Yeah, it's I joke, and it's not a fun joke. I've made more mistakes in hiring than most people I know. Maybe that's part of, and it sucks because you take their lives into your hands. So even if the relationship didn't work out, they gave up a lot to join you, and if it didn't work out, a couple years or 3 months in, it's not good for anybody. And that's the first thing in our process at Real Estate B School. It's getting really clear on who you want to surround yourself with. Mm-hmm. And it's just not, people that are in it for, ego or just money, or, it's just not worth getting into business with them.
Yeah.
So let's transition to a moment of truth where maybe it was in the transition, from production to business ownership, where you had like a light bulb come off. I want to try to give our listeners an idea of what to look for that's going to flip the switch for them. I think a lot of agents are they're going to be wrapped up in production forever in 3 to 5 years. I think if you're not running a team, you'll be working for a team, which is okay. But I think there's an opportunity for people to build real businesses in the real estate space. What was that aha for you, that moment where something, switched?
I think probably the first time I took a free day is what comes to mind there. And a free day is 24 hours away from work. And so you're not checking emails, which, with the iPhone now, that makes just brutally commonplace, but not checking email, not calling the office, not stopping in, and like I can't read a business book, and they're like, no, can't read a business book. It's got to be free. And it was really interesting. So 2013, I asked a couple of good friends of mine, I'm like, hey, what do you do when you have a free day? And they're like, I go to the office. I'm like, what do you mean? And I'm like, no, what do you do? Like, if you're not going to the office, what do you do? And they're going, that's what I do. That's what I do for fun. And that was at the same time, that was kind of the only answer I had as well. And, since then I got back into flying and got a lake house and a boat, paddle boards, and can go shoot guns or fly airplanes or go backpacking and, develop all kinds of things to do in my off time. And the getting out of the office, for me, it's just been such a catalyst for creativity. And it also, there's an old Zig Ziglar thing. He talked about, how much work you get done the day before vacation, when you have a deadline. And that's where I found, for me, I come home and, would work at night after the kids go to bed, and it would be the most inefficient work ever because I had no deadline. I'm like, I'll just stay up as late as I want to, work as late as I want. And so I would work on nothing. And all I would do is lose sleep, which is bad for your health. And so the free day is probably the biggest thing of having other stuff to allow your brain to recuperate and to increase your creativity and to force you to be very productive when you are those times when you are in the office.
Yeah. And it's midnight to midnight too. So you can't hack it. You can't do noon to noon.
Yeah. And I'm in bed well before midnight.
No, that's awesome. And it's, Tom and I are also in a Christian business owners. We're kind of like the board of directors for each other. And we present our businesses once a month, and September was my month. And, I'm contemplating this taking, my kids have every Friday off, which is crazy. It's going to ruin them for the rest of their lives, but it's awesome. And I was questioning, could I or should I rework my calendar to be able to have that as a family day, a free day? And I don't even think I had to finish the question. It was like, yeah, you absolutely. Because I think your kids went to my school for a period of time.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, you absolutely need to take. And it didn't take me but 10 days to, renegotiate my time and take a little bit of less income here. So that was really awesome, just to make decisions around the regrets you're going to have 20 years from now. That's really what I put myself 20 years from now, I'll be 65 years old, and what regrets, or even 10 years from now, what regrets would I have?
Yeah.
And it's not spending enough time with Anders and Kendal in these next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
It was crystal clear to me, that, whatever it took, I needed to get to a point where I could have 3 solid free days, every week, just as my normal, and then take time after that off.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So let's see. Let me try to. I'm trying to look at our script here, and that doesn't count. That doesn't count. What's something you're doing really well in your business right now that a real estate agent wanting to build a team can learn from?
Yeah. So it's interesting. So last 15 months, interest rates have gone up a point to a point and a half for most borrowers. So it's a challenging year. All the people who are focusing on refis are trying to figure out how to do purchase loans. They're out messing those things up for your buyers. And so a lot more competition, a lot more pressure. And, so the things we're doing now is one of the things, a constant challenge is, are you working to be more referable, or are you referable? And I kind of think it's binary. You're either not referable or you are. And so once you're referable, stop. If a person says, hey, I love the work you're doing, you're closing on time, you answered all our questions, you gave us great advice, and everything's perfect, then you don't need to send them a cupcake. That's not going to make you more referable. Just be referable. And so kind of a long answer, but sort of, controlling costs and really focus on a system, saying we got to do absolutely everything that has to be done to, meet our service standards and to close on time and to fulfill the expectations that we put out there. But let's make sure we're not doing the extra stuff, which slows us down. It impacts the correct things we're doing, and it just wastes money, because we're in an environment on the mortgage side where we can't be. We got to watch costs to stay in the business long term.
Yeah. Awesome. So I heard a quote, and this was from Tony Robbins, although it's basically applicable really to any industry. It's the succeeding in business is 80% mindset or psychology versus 20% tactics or strategy. When I say that, psychology, mindset is a big determiner of success. You kind of touched on it with the Henry Ford quote, but what does that mean to you when I say 80% psychology, 20% tactics?
Yeah, it's really, knowing everybody knows what to do, but do they do it? In our industry, if you meet one person a day, so 30 people in the course of a month that either, need to borrow money or know someone who does, And so if you're buying leads online, then the meeting them is you're having a meaningful conversation with them. If it's a referral from an agent, or you're meeting an agent, that has buyers they're working with that they could refer to you. You know, the mindset is, what am I going to do to meet somebody? And to me, the accountability to that, so just doing what you need to do. There's really everybody's searching for the silver bullet and the magic pill. If only I had this, I'd be successful. And it's like, no, you got this new app on your phone, and everybody's got a secret 10-digit code. And if you just punched in those 10 digits, you can actually talk live to somebody. It's amazing, making phone calls.
Yeah.
So the mindset of just taking action on what you already need to do instead of that new strategy or new tactic is, I totally agree with that. If that makes sense.
Thinking there's some easy button when there is no easy button.
Yeah.
All right. So one thing a lot of business owners struggle with, and we've talked about it before, it's enjoying the ride.
Mm-hmm.
Really appreciating where you're at, even if it doesn't feel good. What practices have you put in place that help you, appreciate the journey?
Yeah, my free time is pretty critical. That's big to me. The other thing we just started doing recently was I've got 25 LOs on my team right now, so it's a pretty good sized group. And it's the same thing when you got 4 kids versus 1 kid. It's really easy to focus on 1 kid, so breaking them out into smaller groups. So we split them up into 3 different groups, and make sure we get together and have some meaningful, small group time and one-on-one time with the teammates. That I can stay tuned in with them and still add value to their careers and stuff like that. So that's that's a big part, I think, just maintaining the people relationships. And one of the things we got down to, I said it before, but at the end of the day, when I value my careers, from a gratitude standpoint, I'm helping people do better in life. And so when I look at the roster of all people on my team and celebrate their wins with them, they're educating their kids, they're buying new cars, they're buying new houses. I got one girl that's saving up. She's got a deposit ready for a mountain house that they're going to buy next spring. And, when you start seeing those things happen, especially people that weren't in the mortgage industry and now they're in the mortgage industry and they've taken on greater responsibilities, greater income, and they're reaching some cool goals.
Yeah.
Celebrating those wins of other people is just really meaningful.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can't say my first heavy lift in building a team, it was more, how can this team serve me? And the harsh realization that you can't scale that, and really, what are you doing every day to serve your team as a leader and a manager? So that's awesome. All right. What keeps you up at night when it comes to your business? Quick answer. We're going to do some rapid fire questions. What keeps you up at night?
Interest rates affecting home transactions.
If it had to be non-interest rate related, what keeps you up at night?
Just finding people with values that match our company values to join the team.
I like it. What were you most afraid of when you started building a team?
Expenses and not having the revenue to do it, cover the expenses.
What's the best advice you've ever received about business?
Probably never received it, but have seen it of people who are taking action on ideas. I come up with 1 million ideas a minute, and but I don't take nearly as much action as other people. I know there's one guy that went to a workshop on creating an experts platform, and he started this whole coaching company, and really successful now. So seeing you take action on stuff is really probably the best advice I've seen, because you take action much faster than I ever do. I think about it too much.
Yeah. Well, I also know a guy who built a software company too. So, how about a personal daily or weekly habit that you believe contributes to your success?
I'll say the thing that nobody likes talking about, but I think is critical for me, is getting enough sleep. So I work really hard to get 8 hours of sleep. And then as I get, you mentioned I'm a little more experienced than you are, but as I get older, I recognize that, like, man, having dessert after dinner impacts my sleep. Having that glass of wine impacts my sleep. So just being willing to not only protect my sleep, the time, but the quality of it. So I'm making choices that a lot of times I don't want to make to protect my sleep, which is the only time your body can recover is while you're sleeping. So you can work out all you want to, but if you don't get enough sleep, you never recover from that workout.
Man, that's awesome. That's really good. We don't have time to dig into that, but I'm the same way. I 2 nights ago, I had 2 drinks, And you know me, I track everything with my ring here.
I'm waiting for mine to come up in the mail.
Yeah, and my average heart rate at night will go up like 6 or 7 beats per minute because I had just like 1 or 2 drinks.
Yeah.
And it's even more than that sometimes. If I don't do it a lot, but you definitely notice it. How about one book for someone making the transition from just production to team building or business ownership?
Yeah, it's got to be the E-Myth. So I think you and I have talked about that. E-Myth Revisited. I spent a couple of years doing workshops for branch managers at Fairway, and had about 100 of them come through. And I shared everything that I did to grow my branch from, at that time, was a $28 million team to a $170 million team, and we've more than doubled again since then. But I was driving to the beach one time, and on my way there and back, I listened to the E-Myth, and I was like, I could charge these people the exact same amount of money and just read this book to them, and they would get every value, every penny in value what I was charging them for the coaching session. So don't want to ruin your business there, Lars, but the E-Myth is critical, and that's just the idea of building your business in such a way that can be replicated, systematized.
And it's we send out 6 books to new members, and that's the first one that we send them.
Yeah,
that's awesome. All right, if you had to do it all over again, what would you do differently?
That's a good question. I'd probably take more risks sooner. A lot of time where I think about things too much. That's kind of a generic answer. I don't have a specific on that. My quick answer was get into real estate instead of the mortgage side.
Well, one thing I took away, and we've talked about it, offline and in our men's group, is, really look at, and you said it earlier, really look at where you are in your journey, right? If you have a 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10-year-old at home, or whatever you said your ages of your children were when you're doing the heavy lifting, just think about, we have a guy in our men's group that struggles with this right now. He's got four kids in the same ages you were talking about, and he's struggling with putting all his effort, 12, 14, 15-hour days into work, and he's struggling at home.
Yeah.
What's the right time? What's the season? So I really took that away, and I really take that from you as a mentor to me. So
yeah, setting that, one of the things that is killer in your industry and ours is there's no limits to where you can work. Everybody's got a home office, everybody's got a mobile device, everybody's got an iPad and a laptop, and really setting limits. And that's what we were telling Scott in our men's group, like, if you had to leave work at 5 o'clock for a family obligation, could you? Absolutely. What time does everybody else leave? They all leave at 5. Well, what happens from 5 to 7:30 for this guy? He's completely wasting his time because there's no deadlines, and that's that day before vacation idea,
Yeah.
And so turn off work, get home, be present with who you're home with. And my wife, Kathy, man, she loves to call me out. If she sees me looking at my phone, she's like, "What are you reading? What are you looking at?" And it's like, yeah, you got me. And so it's a battle. I'm not saying it's easy, but you got to have those borders on your time.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's all I've got for you. This has been awesome. I have a lot of respect for you, and obviously not just your business acumen, but just how you roll with the family and all of that. So I appreciate your time, Tom. I know our listeners are going to appreciate listening to this. There's a ton of value just in some life lessons with our time here. So thank you very much, my brother.
All right. Appreciate it, Lars. Appreciate your time with your listeners.
All right. Bye.